Welcome to another installment of The Tale of Despereaux. I'm going to be trying something a little different today. Instead of showing you my face today, I'm going to show you the words as I read them so you can follow along with me. This is chapter 30 and it's called To the Dungeon. Now, if you'll remember yesterday, Miggery Sow had to go deliver some thread to the princess and she didn't do a great job. The head of the staff decided that she was not going to be a great maid. So let's see what happens. At the castle, for the first time in her young life, Meg had enough to eat. And eat she did. She quickly became plump and then plumper still. She grew rounder and bigger. Only her head stayed small. Reader, as the teller of this tale, it is my duty from time to time to utter some hard and rather disagreeable truths. In the spirit of honesty, then, I must inform you that Meg was the tiniest bit lazy. And two, she was not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That is, she was a bit slow-witted. That means she's not very smart. That's figurative language for you. Because of these shortcomings, Louise was hard-pressed to find a job that Miggery Sow could effectively perform. In quick succession, Meg failed as a lady-in-waiting. She was caught trying on the gown of a visiting duchess. A seamstress, she sewed the cloak of the riding master to her own frock and ruined both. And as a chambermaid, sent to a clean room, she stood open-mouthed and delighted, admiring the gold walls and floors and tapestries, exclaiming over and over again, "Gor, ain't it pretty? Gor, ain't it something then?" and did no cleaning at all. And while Meg was trying and failing at these many domestic chores, other important things were happening in the castle. The rat in the dungeon below was pacing and muttering in the darkness, waiting to take his revenge on the princess. And upstairs in the castle, the princess had met a mouse, and the mouse had fallen in love with her. Will there be consequences? You bet. Just as Meg's inability to perform any job well had its consequences. For finally, as a last resort, Louise sent Meg to the kitchen, where Cook had a reputation for dealing effectively with difficult help. In Cook's kitchen, Meg dropped eggshells in the pound cake batter. She scrubbed the kitchen floor with cooking oil instead of cleanser. She sneezed directly on the king's pork chop moments before it was to be served to him. "Of all the good-for-nothings I have encountered," shouted Cook, "surely you are the worst, the most cauliflower-eared, the good-for-nothingest, and there's only one place left for you, the dungeon." "Eh?" said Meg, cupping her hand around her ear. "You are being sent to the dungeon. You are to take the jailer his noonday meal. That will be your duty from now on." Reader, you know that the mice of the castle feared the dungeon. Must I tell you that the humans feared it too? Certainly it was never far from their thoughts. In the warm months, a foul odor rose out of its dark depths and permeated the whole of the castle. And in the still cold nights of winter, terrible howls issued from the dark place, as if the castle itself were weeping and moaning. "It's only the wind," the people of the castle assured each other. "Nothing but the wind." Now, before I start this last paragraph, I'm going to move over and show you this picture of Miggery Sow. You can see she has definitely been taking advantage of having enough food to eat. You know, when she lived with Uncle, she probably didn't have enough to eat. Many a serving girl had been sent to the dungeon bearing the jailer's meal, only to return white-faced and weeping, hands trembling, teeth chattering, insisting that they would never go back. And worse, there were whispered stories of those servant girls who had been given the job of feeding the jailer, who had gone down the stairs and into the dungeon, and who had never been seen or heard from again. Do you believe that this will be Meg's fate? Gor, I hope not. What kind of a story would this be without Meg? "Listen, you cauliflower-eared fool," shouted the cook. "This is what you do. You take the tray of food down to the dungeon and you wait for the old man to eat the food, and then you bring the tray back up. Do you think you can manage that?" I reckon so," said Mig. "I take the old man the tray and he eats what's on it, and then I bring the tray back up. Empty it would be then. I bring the empty tray back up from the deep downs." "That's right," said Cook. "Seems simple, don't it? But I'm sure you'll find a way to bungle it." "Eh?" said Meg. "Nothing," said Cook. "Good luck to you. You'll be needing it." She watched as Meg descended the dungeon stairs. They were the very same stairs, reader, that the mouse Despereaux had been pushed down the day before. Unlike the mouse, however, Meg had a light. On the tray with the food, there was a single flickering candle to show her the way. She turned on the stairs and looked back at Cook and smiled. "That cauliflower-eared good-for-nothing fool," said the cook, shaking her head. "What's to become of someone who goes into the dungeon smiling, I ask you?" Reader, for the answer to Cook's question, you must read on. I like how Kate DiCamillo leaves us hanging there at the end of the chapter, don't you? Let's see how long this next chapter is. A Song in the Dark. Oh, it's nice and short. We have time for this one. Chapter 31, A Song in the Dark. The terrible foul odor of the dungeon did not bother Meg. Perhaps that is because sometimes when Uncle was giving her a good clout to the ear, he missed his mark and delivered a good clout to Meg's nose instead. This happened often enough that it interrupted the proper workings of Meg's olfactory senses. That's her sense of smell. And so it was that the overwhelming stench of despair and hopelessness and evil was not at all discernible to her, and she went happily down the twisting and turning stairs. "Gore!" she shouted. "It's dark, ain't it?" "Yes, it is, Meg," she answered herself. "But if I was a princess, I would be so glittery like. There wouldn't be a place in the world that was dark to me." At this point, Miggery Sow broke into a little song that went something like this. "I ain't the Princess P, but someday I will be the P, ha he, someday I will be." Meg, as you can imagine, wasn't much of a singer, more of a bellower, really. But in her little song there was, to the rightly tuned ear, a certain kind of music. And as Meg went singing down the stairs of the dungeon, there appeared from the shadows a rat, wrapped in a cloak and wearing a I'm struggling right here. Came a rat wrapped in a cloak of red and wearing a spoon on his head. "Yes, yes," whispered the rat. "A lovely song, just the song I have been waiting to hear." And Roscuro quietly fell in step beside Miggery Sow. At the bottom of the stairs, Mig shouted out into the darkness, "Gore! It's me, Miggery Sow. Most calls me Mig, delivering your food. Come and get it, Mr. Deepdowns." There was no response. The dungeon was quiet, but it was not quiet in a good way. It was quiet in an ominous way. It was quiet in the way of small, frightening sounds. There was the snail-like slither of water oozing down the walls, and from around a darkened corner there came the low moan of someone in pain. And then, too, there was the noise of the rats going about their business, their sharp nails hitting the stones of the dungeon, and their long tails dragging behind them through the blood and muck. Reader, if you were standing in the dungeon, you would certainly hear all of these disturbing and ominous sounds. If I were standing in the dungeon, I would hear these sounds. If we were standing in the dungeon together, we would hear those sounds, and we would be very frightened. We would cling to each other in our fear. But what did Miggery Sow hear? That's right. Absolutely nothing. And so she was not afraid at all, not in the least. She held the tray up higher, and the candle shed its weak light on the towering pile of spoons and bowls and kettles. "Gore!" said Meg. "Look at them things. I ain't never imagined there could be so many spoons in the whole wide world. There is more to this world than anyone could imagine, said a booming voice from the darkness. True, true, whispered Roscuro. The old jailer speaks true. Gore, said Meg. Who said that? And she turned in the direction of the jailer's voice. Do you guys remember the jailer's name? His name's Gregory. Is that right? Yeah, Gregory the jailer. When we start off next, wow, whew. I may continue to post my read alouds next week just because I don't want to wait that long to finish this. This is called Chapter 32, Beware of the Rats, and that's where I'll put my bookmark. I will see you guys soon. Enjoy your spring break. Love you, bye.